coming in with balaclavas and AK-47s was not what we expected. I was awakened by one of my band members that they were raiding our casino. There was a roadblock, a lot of RCMP SWAT teams there, helicopters in the air. They had dogs. They were pulling our machines apart, and they had our employees locked into one of the rooms. You know, it terrified our community, but also made our community very mad. We wanted to challenge the jurisdiction of gaming, and that was the bottom line. We wanted to go to court, and in order to do that, we had to open up and we had to, make this challenge. We had to do the investment. We hired lawyers, historians, consultants, and we did our research and good governance on it. And the provincial government at the time did not agree, and we're fully expecting to go to court. What we didn't expect is the way that they shut down our casino was the raid. They charged me with approximately 15 criminal code offenses at the time. Slowly, as we moved through the court process, charges got dropped or stayed.
That was a catalyst for development, and it really spurred what was going to happen next around gaming in Saskatchewan. So negotiations with the provincial government started soon after that.
When I came into the office, the gaming issue was an outstanding issue, given that the provincial government had raided White Bear and that we'd had this other casino deal voted down by the people of Saskatchewan, and the chiefs didn't like this gaming deal that my predecessor had developed, and it was a very controversial issue. And so the whole question of Indians' jurisdiction over gaming was an open question, and so we moved in the middle of that. Our focus was on occupying the field of jurisdiction, having our jurisdiction be recognized, and allowing ourselves to run businesses in that space. The negotiations were very dramatic, right up to the last minute. We were negotiating. The deal that we signed was the deal that we finished negotiating while the Chiefs conference was going on in another room. The Chiefs accepted the deal. They were apprised of what was going on beforehand. The elders had prayed, we'd had pipe ceremonies. And then in order to recognize the significance of the moment, one of the chiefs called out for a standing count, 100 chiefs standing up, the 74 chiefs plus the tribal chiefs and the FSI executive, the Senate, together in unity over this deal. It was a powerful moment. The White Bear story was a spark. It was the right time, it was the right people. We played our cards right, and we got fortunate. Really were fortunate. It wasn't one thing that I did, it wasn't one thing Bernie did, it was a whole bunch of things that kind of came together at the same time.
So that laid the foundation for gaming, and as a result, the development of the Saskatchewan Indian Gaming Authority.
Then 1996 hits, and it's time to go. We were preparing to open 4 casinos across Saskatchewan.
We didn't know what we were getting into, to be honest. We didn't realize the scope of this. In those early days, it was just running by the seat of your pants. It was crazy. So the scope of work was massive. When you think of opening 4 casinos in 1 year, that wouldn't happen today. When I look back then, it was a wild time to get your leases in place, your buildings, ordering all the equipment, getting the slot product, or at that time, VLT product into the buildings, and figuring out the technical aspects of running the VLT network and getting everything all set up, the training of the staff. So it was a whirlwind of activity.
We're the underdog. We had no money. We had no experience. We had this piece of paper that we fought for that said we had a license to make casinos and that we did it ourselves. That's the story of SIGA, is the fact that these 4 tribal councils built their own damn buildings with their own money, and they trained their own people.
A lot of people won't know, because it's been a long time since we opened a lot of our casinos now, is that we operated out of makeshift casinos in the beginning.
It was renovated strip malls, it was renovated grocery stores, arenas.
The first casino in Prince Albert wasn't a roller rink. I was hired as a janitor. When we opened the doors on the very first day, I was in surveillance. We were all excited, we were all nervous. It was a crazy night. We had been trained for it, but we didn't have a lot of training still. We were still developing as we went on. So at Northern Lights, we really weren't expecting or prepared for how much business we were going to do, how busy we were going to be. We weren't even close to the original projections in that. What they said we'd be doing on a really busy Friday, Saturday night, we were doing on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday night. There are just so many goofy things that happened. Sometimes staff members trying to rush to get on the gaming floor would come running out and forget to put their pants on and have to run back. It would be minus 40, and people are standing in line outside waiting to get in the casino. Who would ever thought that would happen in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, right? We grew out of that building the first 3 weeks that we opened, and we knew we needed a new building. Even though we started off really successfully in the beginning, there was still a general attitude, not just in community, but across the province that, this isn't going to work, that SIGA's not going to be able to make a go of it. We're not going to know how to run such a complicated business.
Back in the 90s, times were different, perspectives were different, and nobody wanted to give these casinos to Indians.
But when we did start to find those business partners, those ones that would support us in the initial first 5 years, the relationships just grew stronger and we just grew even faster. Things changed, attitudes changed. Once they realized that we're there to stay and that we're going to run that business just as good or better than anybody else.
Going into gaming, there was definitely some critics, and I think they talked about the issues that might come from gaming, problem gambling and people losing resources that they might not have. That's why when the negotiations were happening around gaming, the chiefs or the leadership at that particular time, they had the foresight to recognize that. So they developed a fund for First Nations Addictions Rehabilitative Foundation, which for short is FNARF, and money was set aside for that particular organization to help handle any issues around problem gambling.
We don't want people's last $20. We want to provide an experience. I believe we have it covered A to Z and top to bottom.
The big push was really to be successful. We couldn't fail. A lot of casinos are part of a parent company. This was grassroots. We built it ourselves. It's homegrown. It's First Nations grown. So there was a lot of pride there. And SIGA operates as a family, So again, when you have your firstborn and you have your secondborn, there's a lot of learning and you just keep building on. As we opened these casinos, we learned from each other. We shared information and we built that capacity from within.
I think if you look at 1996, it was an incredible year of First Nation entrepreneurialism, an incredible demonstration of what First Nations can do when they work collaboratively and work towards a goal.
There was a move to have First Nations become an active participant in the business community to actually own a piece of the productive capacity of Saskatchewan's economy. And SIGA, for all of the First Nations in the province, represented the first vehicle for them to do that. Once the ice was broken here, tribal interests across the country were then able to follow along the same line and to pursue the development of their own gaming activities. But Saskatchewan has always been a leader on this one.
We had so much success in the 1990s, and then we hit that bump in the road.
Certainly the early 2000s was a challenging time for the company. We were under a lot of scrutiny and testing. We went through a period where we just needed to get some more consistency and controls in place.
And I remember the auditor came in and we had 100 items listed on this audit that we had to rectify, and we had to have, hiring process, formal hiring process, formal evaluation processes. So those had to be built from scratch. So it was just so much work to do, but getting those professional processes in place was paramount at the time. It made us look inward and had to figure this all out to become that professional operator.
I think with any organization in its infancy like that, and SIGA was very much in its infancy, learning a new business and how to manage that, there'll always be ups and downs. There'll be challenges, things you don't anticipate and things you don't plan for.
Facing a lot of challenges and overcoming those challenges, and then correcting your policy, correcting your budget, all of that gets corrected, not on perfect days. They usually get corrected on tough days.
The whole ordeal probably helped the organization become better at what we were doing. SIGA developed 5 guiding principles. They're values that the organization tries to live by. The first one is Tapwewin, the principle of speaking with precision and accuracy. Miskasewin signifies the value of finding one's sense of origin and belonging. Living together on the land is the fundamental value conveyed by the word Wetaskiwin. Pimachewin stresses the importance of making a living and is today's realization of First Nations treaty relationship. The value of getting along with others is embodied in the word Maiwichitwin.
We set ourselves up for success, and it was time to open more casinos.
In 2007, we brought SIGA to the largest market in Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, and we opened Dakota Dunes Casino, and that was a game changer for our company.
Well, I remember the night we opened. We had 5,000 people, and it was a steady stream of headlights coming down the highway.
The energy and just the rewarding aspect of it is beyond anything I've ever experienced. So. Then in 2008, we opened a Living Sky Casino in Swift Current, Saskatchewan.
There were people that wanted the casino there, and there was others that didn't. So you have to get into the community. You have to build that trust, build that relationship. If you can open up a casino in the Bible Belt of Saskatchewan, you know you're doing something.
We actually doubled the size of the company in a short period of time. We were expanding in our casino developments. We were also improving our initial casinos, doing renovations around some of those.
We were in the neighborhood of 17 to 1,800 staff across all of our properties.
You know, when you're bringing on that many employees in a short period of time, there's lots going on, right? And so there's training and development, there's orientation, there's helping our employees get established in our volunteer programs. We run a very significant scholarship program. We really learned how to leverage our sponsorship program with other partners, right? So we were trying to make sure that the dollars went farther with working with partners. So that's what we really were able to develop as well during that period of time. We give back $1.3 million annually to organizations and communities across Saskatchewan.
And we're really serving our mandate, creating that opportunity for employment, investing back in our people. We had all of our properties with inclusive economic development, First Nation partners.
And everyone wins, everyone benefits. And you can see that here with all the employment that's generated here. You got 700 jobs. And how does that benefit the whole region?
We've consistently been 65, 66% plus First Nation. You won't see that type of First Nation development, ownership, and employment in any kind of First Nation casino operation in Canada.
I think everybody realized that, wow, you know, we never thought it would get this big this fast, and it did.
We had heard rumors that Alberta was looking to build up a casino on the Alberta side, and we decided we needed to get in there first. We opened up our 7th casino, the Gold Horse Casino in Lloydminster. Each casino new build is a bit unique, different market, you know, different availability of labor, different challenges around the facility, the location. But over the years, SIGA has learned to assess each market, get in there, and you know, address the gaps that exist. And we've been highly successful in that formula.
The great thing about casinos is you bring the economy to you. It's very important for all of our operations to be based on First Nation land. It's the essence and importance of the success and impact of our business model.
So back in 2018, we decided to open a casino, but we also had another big project. We transitioned the slot system from Western Canada Lottery Corporation over to SIGA. We built a brand new central office here with a warehouse. So a huge milestone for us as a company that we became a true operator.
So it was a very, very busy time for the company, and really positive.
And we were consistently generating $80 to $85 million in net income for our beneficiaries each and every year.
Going into 2020, we were having a phenomenal year. And then in March 16th, the world shut down, and so did SIGA.
That pandemic was devastating in terms of us shutting down the casinos. We never thought we'd be shutting down our casinos completely.
We went from 1,750 staff to about 127 in the space of a day. It was just that instant.
That was a very difficult decisions, knowing that we were all about creating jobs and opportunity. It was very difficult for us to say, you don't have a job anymore.
What did COVID do to this organization? What happened?
The COVID period was one of the most difficult periods for the organization. I think it's the most difficult period SIGA has ever come through, something we never want to go through again. It was hard on our employees.
Being closed when you're a nonprofit due to the pandemic, you know, that brought us into an immediate crisis mode.
You can imagine what that does, right? We don't keep any of our revenues, so we don't have a nest egg that we're keeping for anything. It's pretty detrimental.
I think what it really demonstrated was how important SIGA was to so many people. A lot of key stakeholders, including the province, came to the table and said, hey, we got to find a way to get through this.
And it was an opportunity to say, you know, this is what SIGA used to be. Here's our modern day reality. It's a different reality. And here's where we're going to go to get the next steps.
And we could see other casinos staying open through their online platforms. Their casinos were closed, but their online platforms were operating, and we knew we had to do the same. COVID was a mixed blessing in that sense, that it really pushed us to get this online agreement going. It's really presented a real big challenge for us to know our customer and know our product. And we're going to see this digital convergence, this convergence of brick and mortar and online down the road. And that's the future of gaming. There's a lot of people playing in the gray market. And that's the most important thing, is it brings people into the legal platform. So we think it'll grow jobs, and as we go forward, data is the new oil. We need staff to analyze the data that's coming in. We need to look at the appropriate offer for a brick and mortar player. We need to look at the appropriate offer for an online player and the person that plays both, right? We need to figure out what their preferences are and what will suit them best.
We're very excited and proud of being that sole First Nation operator for online gaming. It's a first of its kind in Canada to have exclusive online operating rights for a province.
Previous years, we had 80 million as a target. We hit that target, highly successful. And this year we're going to be well north of 100 million, a record year for SIGA.
Thankfully, we're at a position now where we're reinvesting back in our people, we're reinvesting back in our product, reinvesting back in that customer experience, because that's always key to what we do and our success going forward.
100% of our proceeds are distributed out. And here you see our partners doing great work, the First Nations Trust and the CDCs at all casinos.
To date, we've given the 74 First Nations $1 billion. That's how powerful this organization is.
We never had any idea the impact SIGA would have on our communities.
I am very proud to be the first female general manager in the history of SIGA. I have 2 daughters. Being a role model for them, showing that they can achieve anything they put their minds to, anything is possible.
I had a rough life when I was a kid. I was on the wrong side of the law in a lot of situations, and when I started working for SIGA, I realized how important my gaming tag was and how important my career was to make sure that I lived that clean life and everything. So I actually started walking a different path. It's helped me for sure, and it's going to help my families and my future generations.
It really set us up to break that cycle of poverty. You know, a lot of us didn't have jobs, and there wasn't that opportunity. But when you do have that first job, you can provide for your children. You can pave that way that they'll get educated. They'll find that first job, and they'll be successful.
We have a lot that have made their career with us. We have a lot that left and made a really good career somewhere else, and have taken some of those lessons that we've taught them. They've taken that and they've made themselves a better life. So, you know, it really not makes you feel here, but it really engages to know that you're having a positive impact.
I've always looked at SIGA as the North Star, that First Nation top employer. Right back from when I was in university to where I am now in my career, it's always been one of those organizations that I've looked as an employer of choice.
You know, it's like planting the seed of a tree, or even raising our own children, nurturing them, guiding them, giving them the skills and tools to succeed. And that's what SIGA has become.
And every day you get to be yourself. You're comfortable in your own skin, the humor, the family atmosphere. You know that the values that you make decisions upon are based on our First Nations values. And that's key for me working in this company.
You know, 25 years later, our mandate is still not to generate profits. Our mandate is to create jobs and to employ First Nations people.
We're opening the casino in Prince Albert, and this little white-haired guy, he sought me out. He said, "Are you Chief Fable?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "I want to thank you," he said, "for starting the casinos here in Prince Albert." And he introduced himself. He was a principal of an inner-city school. And he said that he could tell which of the students' parents were working at the casino. He said because their kids were coming to school with lunches, and they're coming to school with new running shoes. And that's powerful, to move people from poverty to a place of respect and dignity. So that's what SIGA, for me, will always mean.
Was SIGA a good bet?
Absolutely. It was one of the best bets.
There's no question.
Yes, for sure.
Flush, royal flush, I'd say.
Yes.
It was a jackpot.
Abso-fucking-lutely.